The set of Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen had seen its fair share of wild interviews, feuds, drunken confessions, and shady digs were par for the course. But when Meghan Markle agreed to appear on the show, no one, least of all Andy, expected it would end in a near-explosive confrontation that would send shockwaves across the media world. It started innocently enough. Meghan arrived at the studio in her signature poised style, dressed in a crisp navy blazer and wide-leg trousers. Her smile was soft but guarded, as if she'd already anticipated being under a microscope. Andy greeted her with his usual charm, and the audience, who had waited hours for a glimpse, erupted into applause. Andy kicked things off lightheartedly. "Ladies and gentlemen, the Duchess is in the house." He beamed, raising his cocktail in a mock toast. Meghan chuckled, easing into the seat. "Just Meghan, please. We're all friends here, right?" For the first 10 minutes, things were smooth. They discussed her kids, her new lifestyle brand, and her upcoming projects. She shared a few quips about living in Montecito, even teasing Prince Harry's obsession with American takeout. The banter flowed naturally, but then came the fan-submitted questions. Andy read from his cue card, voice still chipper. One viewer asks, "Meghan, how do you balance your desire for privacy with the very public choices you've made, like Netflix documentaries and tell-all interviews?" The atmosphere changed. Meghan blinked slowly and tilted her head. "Well," she began carefully, "there's a big difference between wanting to control your narrative and disappearing. Privacy doesn't mean hiding, it means having agency." Andy nodded, but pushed slightly. "Of course, but some people feel there's a contradiction. That by choosing to tell your story in such public forums, you've opened the door to criticism." Her smile faded. "And by that logic, should every person who writes a memoir never ask for peace again? Or are the rules just different for me?" Andy's brows lifted. "You've got to admit though, between Oprah, Spotify, Netflix, it's a lot. People just don't know where the line is anymore." Meghan folded her hands in her lap. "People only don't know because they've been told what to think. Told by media that twists everything I do into something sinister. That's the real contradiction here." Andy shifted in his seat, trying to hold the mood. "Okay, fair, but you've become one of the most polarizing figures in pop culture. Some people feel like you lean into the fame when it suits you, and then reject it when it gets hard. Do you understand that perception?" There was a sharp pause. Meghan's face hardened. "I understand that people love to reduce complex realities into soundbites. It's lazy and it's cruel." The audience went quiet. Andy, never one to back down, replied, "But it's also a showbiz town, Meghan. You've got to know the rules." That's when she leaned forward, eyes locked on Andy. "That's the problem, Andy. I do know the rules. I lived by them, tried to play nice. And the moment I stepped out of line, when I spoke my truth, I became the villain. But you're right, this is showbiz. And in showbiz, tearing women down is still a national sport." Andy opened his mouth, but Meghan wasn't finished. "You invite me here for honesty, but really you want soundbites. You want drama, just like everyone else." He held up his hands. "Meghan, come on, we're just having a conversation." "No," she said, voice rising, "you're performing a takedown, disguised as a conversation." The audience murmured again. The energy had shifted into something electric, uncomfortable. From the control room, the producers began urgently signaling Andy to move to a break. But Meghan wasn't done, and neither was the storm brewing on set. Andy glanced off camera, clearly catching the frantic signals from the producers, but the fire in Meghan's eyes made it clear, there was no going back now. The tension was thick, the kind you could feel in your spine. He tried to reset, flashing his signature smirk in a last-ditch effort to lighten the mood. Okay, let's take a breath," Andy chuckled nervously. "We're just two people talking. No takedowns here." But Meghan wasn't smiling. "It's easy to say that when you control the narrative, Andy," she said, her tone low but firm. "You invite people on your show, pretend to be a friend, then throw them into the fire for clicks and ratings." There was an awkward silence in the studio. Audience members exchanged glances, unsure whether they were witnessing an epic TV moment or a full-blown PR meltdown. Andy took a sip of his drink, trying to recover. "Look, Meghan, you've always had a powerful voice. That's part of why people are fascinated by you. But if you come on Watch What Happens Live, you have to expect a little shade. That's kind of what we do here." She shook her head. "What you do is bait people into defending themselves. You invite women like me on so your viewers can decide whether we're real or fake. Strong or manipulative. You frame the entire conversation before it begins." Andy exhaled, clearly annoyed now. So now you're saying I brought you on here to humiliate you? I'm saying you don't actually want the truth. You want the headline. Meghan snaps on Andy. And congratulations, you got it, she said, pushing back her chair slightly. That's when the moment shifted from tense to historic. Okay, Andy snapped, dropping the charm altogether. If you didn't want to be challenged, why come on the show at all? You knew what this was. Don't pretend you didn't. A hush fell. Meghan stood up. I came because I thought we could have a real conversation. I gave you the benefit of the doubt. That was my mistake. Andy stood too, matching her energy now. This is my show, Meghan. If you're going to throw accusations, at least be honest about why you're really here. Public sympathy. Another redemption tour. Gasps echoed through the studio. Meghan's eyes blazed. You think this is about redemption? I don't need to redeem myself to anyone, not to you, not to your audience, and certainly not to the tabloid circus you feed. From the back, a stage manager moved forward, speaking urgently into her earpiece. Security had already been called, not because Meghan was being physical, but because it was clear the interview had gone completely off the rails. Andy tried to salvage it with one last plea. We can cut to commercial. Come back and do it right. Clean slate. But Meghan simply smoothed the lapel of her blazer and said, I'm done playing nice for men who think they're doing women a favor by letting them speak, only to twist every word they say. And with that, she walked off the set. As she disappeared behind the velvet curtain, the stunned audience was dead silent. Cameras were still rolling, catching Andy as he adjusted his suit jacket and tried to compose himself. Well, he muttered, forcing a shaky laugh, that was definitely one for the books. The broadcast cut early. Within minutes, #Meghan vs Andy was trending on every major platform. The clip of her walking out was shared millions of times before midnight. Some called her ungrateful, others hailed her as a truth-teller refusing to bow to outdated media games. One thing was certain, Meghan Markle's appearance had turned Andy Cohen's show upside down. And nothing, for either of them, would be the same again.